This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
When the moon is full, more crimes of violence occur. Arrests have been known to increase, as well as admissions to mental hospitals. Firemen report an unusually high number of fires and freak accidents. Emergency personnel in hospitals brace themselves for increased caseloads. Bizarre statements and traumatic actions by usually rational people are attributed to moon madness. Why? What strange influence does the moon have on the behavior of man?
I'm in Aries. I have a Libra rising. My Venus is in Pisces. My moon is in Cancer. I know an awful lot about it because every man that I like, I be sure and check out what his sign is first before I get, too involved. I'm a Sagittarius, and I don't know that much about astrology.
Yeah, I do know. I'm an Aries, and I think it's fun to read my horoscope every morning in the paper.
I'm a Libra, and I think I'm not real in favor of it because I think it gives people an out, tells them what to do, and that's just what they want to do.
My sign is Virgo. I don't think it has much scientific fact because I don't think anybody has ever proved anything.
I'm a Leo, and I wish I knew more about it. I really don't. I think it's terrific, very interesting, and I just wish I knew more about it.
And I'm an Aries with Scorpio rising. For most of us, that's as far as it goes. We know our sign, but little beyond that. What is astrology? Why do 32 million Americans express a belief in it? Simply put, astrology is the forecasting of events on Earth based on the relationship between the stars, the sun, the moon, and the other planets. As above, so below. Perhaps astrology began as a form of survival. Cavemen looked up into the night sky, trying to determine when to hunt, when to store food, when to seek shelter from wintry storms. Years passed, and early man realized that the weather, the moon, the sun, and the stars moved in predictable cycles. Ice Age bone markings suggest that prehistoric men were aware of the cycle of the moon over 32,000 years ago. In the more recent past, star groupings were identified by assigning them the names of earthly creatures. Cancer, the crab. Aries, the ram. Leo, the lion. Sagittarius, the archer. Scorpio, the scorpion. The formalized study of astrology originated in Mesopotamia at least 3,000 years before Christ. From there, it spread to Egypt, India, China, and throughout Europe. The Egyptians devised a calendar dividing the yearly cycle into 12 houses. Knowledge of the future was considered a potent weapon. Only those of royal birth were permitted to learn the mysteries of the heavens. The great temples and pyramids along the Nile incorporated astronomical calculations in their design. At that time, astronomy and astrology were considered one and the same. An astrologer charted the movement of planets and interpreted their influence on the affairs of man. 4 centuries before Christ, the Greeks combined mythology, geometry, and Mesopotamian astrology into a complex system. In the 2nd century AD, the Greek mathematician Claudius Ptolemy accurately measured planetary movements. His prolific research dominated both astrology and astronomy for 1,500 years. Meanwhile, astrology flourished throughout the Roman Empire. Moses, father of the Jewish people, practiced astrology. In Bet Alpha, Israel, A synagogue built in the 6th century AD has the zodiac as the centerpiece of its mosaic floor. Unusual celestial activity apparently heralded the birth of Christ. 3 times in the same year, Saturn and Jupiter moved closely together, forming a conjunction in the constellation of Pisces. According to some of the newer translations of the Bible, the Magi were astrologers. The first conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter supposedly started them on their long journey. The second guided them west, and the third occurred when they arrived in Bethlehem. Astrology was condemned by early Christians as pagan ritual. Today, the most extensive astrological library in the world is found, of all places, in the Vatican.
Astrology and astronomy, of course, are very closely related, although there have been many heated battles and debates, and I've been...
Sidney Omar is one of America's leading astrologers. His books on the subject have sold over 20 million copies.
I remember one time when MGM was doing a movie called The Heavenly Body, starring Hedy Lamarr and William Powell, where William Powell played the astronomer, and his wife in the movie, Hedy Lamarr, played the astrologer. Well, they had to hire 2 technical advisors for that movie. It turned out that the astrologer was being paid 3 times as much as the astronomer, and when the astronomer found this out, he stormed off the set. And I suppose perhaps that symbolizes the peak that exists between astrologers and astronomers. But I always compare it in this manner. I think an astronomer is a librarian. He knows where all the books are placed. He knows the positions of the planets. But the astrologer reads the books. He interprets those positions. From the beginning of recorded history, astrology has been with us, and astronomers branched out into their own field. The early astrologers would hire apprentices to do the mathematical work so they could get the proper positions of the planets. Then the astrologer, the master astrologer, would interpret those positions. Well, the apprentices eventually branched out into their own science based on mathematics, and they called that science astronomy. Now, why the two should continue to battle, I don't know. That's a psychological study in itself.